Allora, buon pomeriggio a tutti quanti. Mi chiamo Franco Fracassi, sono il moderatore di questa sessione e la sessione parlerà di sicurezza alimentare globale e non solo, anche la prevenzione della fame e dell'effettivo sviluppo dell'agricoltura. Allora, vorrei premettere e ricordare a tutti quanti che in questo momento si sta ovviamente vivendo un periodo molto complicato che apparentemente interessa solamente, al di là della guerra, la distribuzione dell'energia, in realtà ha un enorme impatto sull'agricoltura. Forse di tutti quanti i settori economici, quello agricolo è quello più colpito in assoluto, per vari motivi. Primo perché la regione più ricca del mondo per quanto riguarda l'agricoltura è proprio quella che interessa la guerra, sia la parte ucraina che la parte russa. Secondo, perché sia l'Ucraina che la Russia sono i maggiori produttori mondiali di fertilizzanti e materiali per l'agricoltura e quindi la mancanza di quelle materie prime non solo mette in difficoltà in gran parte del resto del pianeta, ma anche fa alzare i prezzi e la cosa ovviamente non aiuta soprattutto i piccoli produttori agricoli. So che in Italia, faccio l'esempio dell'Italia, insomma tantissimi produttori agricoli sono in enorme difficoltà perché non riescono a reggere l'impatto dei costi della gestione delle loro fattorie e quindi molti stanno chiudendo. Uno parla sempre delle aziende, delle grandi aziende industriali, ma l'agricoltura in realtà soffre molto di più e ovviamente in Africa questa cosa si sente ancora di più, anche perché uno dei motivi sempre di difficoltà è che l'aumento del costo dell'energia porta a un aumento generalizzato di tutti quanti i prodotti agricoli che comunque devono essere trasportati in giro per il mondo. E ovviamente a rimetterci sono sempre i paesi più poveri e noi con la nostra visione un po' occidentalocentrica del mondo ci facciamo sempre poco caso, ci frega magari poco di quel che accade in Africa, mentre invece poi alla fine in qualche modo le cose ci ritornano sempre. Allora, l'altro punto è che essendo la regione più ricca del mondo, quella diciamo dal punto di vista della produzione agricola, quella interessata dalla guerra, è anche attenzionata dalle grandi multinazionali del cibo, che in realtà la fanno da padrone nell'agricoltura nel mondo. E, quantomeno loro nel lato ucraino stanno investendo tantissime risorse per riuscire a mantenere il più territorio possibile e alle loro condizioni, perché per loro la produzione agricola in Ucraina è fondamentale e ci hanno puntato molto in questi anni le principali 8 aziende agricole del mondo. Quindi anche questa guerra ha molto a che fare con l'agricoltura. Allora, abbiamo diversi ospiti oggi che hanno da dire cose tutte quante molto interessanti. Io partirei intanto da Anar Jafarov, che lui è del Ministero dell'Agricoltura in Azerbaigian, perché uno dei punti diciamo, che la FAO ha lanciato come tentativo di dare nuovo impulso all'agricoltura, visto che secondo sempre i dossier della FAO si prevede che la crescita di domanda agricola rallenterà nel prossimo decennio e verrà trainata unicamente dalla crescita della popolazione. La FAO pensa che i prezzi agricoli potranno restare bassi soprattutto grazie all'innovazione e all'efficienza. E allora so che qui in Azerbaigian si punta molto sull'innovazione e l'efficienza dell'agricoltura e quindi vorrei che ci spiegasse il vostro modello di innovazione e efficienza, che magari potrebbe essere esempio anche per altri paesi.
Çok sağ olun. Verona Eurasian İqtisadi Forumunun bütün iştirakçılarını salamlayıram. Biz artıq ikinci gündəki
Well, we are now at the second day of our forum. Before I answer your question, some speakers before me talked about the relations between Verona and Baku and the common points, the similarities that exist. Yesterday, Italian speakers made a reference to literature and the history of Azerbaijan, and they stressed they mentioned some intellectuals from Azerbaijan, Benjavi, for instance. We know, Azerbaijan is very famous for its poems. No Azerbaijani would go to Verona without visiting the house of Juliet. So all Azerbaijanis learn the philosophy of Romeo and Juliet, and the same is true for Azerbaijan. We have our poets, and we all know it. Azerbaijani, just like Italians, give a lot of importance to friendship, and they love their land. Talking about land, I also mean farming and agriculture. Agriculture is a sector that is facing very many challenges. According to the FAO statistics, the situation is not brilliant. In the next few years, we'll have quite a few important challenges to face. You know that agriculture depends on natural phenomena. Every year, because of climate change, the farming sector suffers more and more. According to the FAO statistics, in the last 40 years, the number of people is increasing, but at the same time, farming is decreasing up to 2.3%. There's also the problem of desertification, droughts. These are all climatic phenomena that are influencing the statistical data of farming. In 2050, it is said that the world population will increase and reach 10 billion people. This means that the food needed will double. When we talk about food, the quality of food is a very important aspect. Now, at the moment, the farming sector and the food sector are facing many challenges. The food production organization is not efficient. And these are globally discussed issues. Faced with global climate change, you probably know that the average temperature is increasing. And the availability of water is becoming scarcer. We're also faced with earthquakes, climate change, and phenomena. Now, all of these events have an impact on food production. In the last 100 years, climate changes and climate extreme phenomena have become more and more frequent. The average temperature has increased by 0.9 degrees since the 19th century. in 2050, the increase will achieve 1.5 Celsius degrees. We are seeing many changes, and many of these changes were unexpected. All of this leads to an increase of dry land. So our lands are becoming drier and drier. 1/4 of the world land is now dry and suffers from droughts. My colleague will tell you more about some more optimistic projects that exist, and he will mention these in his speech. Floods have increased by 4 times, and the result is that millions of hectares of land have gone lost. The farming activities must be adapted to climate change, and we are doing our best to give our contribution to make sure that these projects to adapt farming to climate change can be effective and yield good results. Climate change have also an impact on animal farming and on crop farming. In Azerbaijan, the Ministry for Agriculture has 7 institutes which carry out research, and they study the production of vegetables, fruit, the production of olive oil. They are all working as research institutes on the creation of new types of methods to farm the land. I mentioned the degradation of soil, and you know that this is another challenge that we are currently facing. This process is very risky. According to the FAO numbers, 1.2% of the world land is degraded, and 10% of woods have also been destroyed. According to research, soil degradation is the result of bad farming practices. In the world, very often water is not saved, so farming uses too much water, and also fertilizers are abused. This all leads to soil degradation. Winter grasslands are not used adequately. Today in Azerbaijan, soil and land is degraded by agriculture. It is a very current problem that we have in Azerbaijan. And farming entrepreneurs need education and information to improve their practices, so that they can understand how important it is to implement good practices, and we have set up projects to support them. I also would like to emphasize the fact that in Azerbaijan, different subsidies are available for farmers. The government is supporting farmers through subsidies. In Azerbaijan, many farmers are farming abandoned land. I will go back to the topic of subsidies because in Azerbaijan this does not only mean money to support farmers. Subsidies also involve technology, so we try and make technology available. I was talking about water before. You know that Azerbaijan doesn't have a lot of water resources. Ours is not a very water-rich country. And so it is very important in the farming sector to make good use of water through the right practices. As we are seeing an increase in the world population, it's very clear that it is extremely important to safeguard water as a very precious resource. According to the most recent research, if we continue with the same pace of water consumption, 2/3 of the world population will suffer from water scarcity very soon. Now, this is another challenge for farming as well. Now, 70% of water is in developed countries, and 90% of water is used by farming. To produce, for instance, 1 kilo of wheat or to produce 1 kilo of meat, it takes a lot of water. For 1 kilo of wheat, it takes 1.3 tons of water. For the production of 1 kilo of meat, it takes 13 tons of water. And this is a big challenge for farming, especially in Azerbaijan. There are many technologies that can be used, and we have these in Azerbaijan too. We have been applying them successfully to save water. Many countries in the world are moving away from traditional farming practices. In many countries, in fruit and vegetable farming, new technologies are being used. Thanks to these new, more innovative technologies, it is possible to save water. 30 to 40% of water can be saved. So, new technologies give us the opportunity to grow our food production while at the same time saving water. The subsidies I was referring to are given under a prerequisite. Farmers are told that they need to save water in their practices, and this is a required prerequisite to access the subsidies. Farmers need to save water in their irrigation. Now, the application of these new technologies that are now available give the opportunity to save water resources. In Azerbaijan, in the Food Security Index, we rank quite well. Our situation has improved because the projects we've implemented have given us very positive results. During the pandemic, many countries, as we've already heard, suffered a lot. and also because of other factors, hunger has become a more common problem. The state of Azerbaijan signed several agreements, and now, starting from 2023, we will start our own wheat production. Until now, the we didn't produce much wheat. Georgia and Armenia have a higher wheat production. Now we cover our demand by 60%, and we are aiming at achieving 80% in the next few years. We think that we can obtain this result by using the new available technology. So we will be able to cover the demand for wheat with our own internal production. Many local wheat producers will participate and will be involved in the new projects to improve farming practices. In addition to subsidies, farmers who are interested in growing wheat also have additional benefits. Their subsidies are slightly higher. Talking about food security, in addition to the production of wheat, Azerbaijan is looking at other productions as well. We are self-sufficient in terms of vegetables, fruit, and this is very good. We're very happy to be here at this forum to express our views and opinions, and I hope that the next forum will be held again in Verona. But the forum here in Baku will be remembered by everyone because you celebrated the 15th anniversary of the forum here. I would like to ask Viorel Gutu, the FAO Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia, on the basis of what Mr. Jafarov said, we can clearly see that there is a problem stemming from climate change. Climate change, of course, entails huge difficulties and problems for farming. In recent years, we also had to go through COVID and then the war, which added to the problem. We also heard another problem being mentioned, an economic inequality between rich countries and poor countries. So, in other words, rich countries are big meat producers. They use a lot of the water that is available on the planet to produce meat, while poor countries struggle and their only choice is to invest in technology. But Azerbaijan can afford it because it's a rich country and it has energy resources, but many other countries cannot invest in technology. So because you work in particular in countries that are not necessarily rich in water, what can you tell us about this? What does the strategy look like to promote and help this kind of farming development so that these countries do not sink in hunger? Thank you.
I'll try to look to your questions in a bit different perspective, and maybe larger, and then come back to more narrow answers. First of all, I'd like to refer to the statistics which was presented recently also in the movie we just saw at the beginning. And many of you already know that FAO's latest analysis showed that the world hunger rose again in 2022, reflecting indeed growing inequalities across and within countries. Currently is 828 million people were affected by hunger in 2021. 828 million. Imagine this figure. Compare it to your countries, compare it to the regions. And this is an increase of 46 million from 2020 and 150 million from 2019, before COVID-19 pandemic. Moreover, food price inflation due to the economic impacts of the pandemic have left 112 million more people unable to afford a healthy diet. And this brings us to a total of 3.1 billion people on the planet. And I have to say that we all had hoped that by today the world would have emerged from the COVID-19 crisis, but economic impacts of the pandemic have left millions of people around the world unable to access sufficient quantity and quality of food. If we project these numbers to 2030, we can clearly see that we are definitely off track in achieving our goal of ending hunger by 2030, that's Sustainable Development Goal number 2, to end hunger. Definitely, you also mentioned it, situation worsened by the war in Ukraine, supply chains being disrupted, affecting the price, not only cereals, also fertilizer and energy, two major inputs for agriculture. We have just few countries which have a big share in the global cereal export market, including Russia and Ukraine. In case of wheat, more than 60% of supply comes from top 10 exporters. In case of fertilizers, there are even less exporting countries, as fertilizer production depends on natural resources, especially natural gas. And this means that anything that happens to any of these key exporting countries automatically will have a reflection in supply and prices. In the recent times, fertilizer prices doubled or even tripled, and this certainly affects affordability of producers, the farmers, the ones who produce food for us in the current and next planting seasons, and impacts productivity, supply and prices. I'd like to say a few words about how we are supporting countries, also trying to answer to your question. We are trying to find ways on improving efficiency of fertilizer use, for example, by supporting countries in developing scientific and precise soil nutrient maps and databases, so that producers improve the efficiency in the use of fertilizers. We definitely have to expand this, because this could create another opportunities to reduce the intensity of use of fertilizers, at the same time increasing the yields. And again, this would and could also have positive effect on natural resources, especially land and water, our main resources for agriculture. Also, I'd like to bring here another subject which we are very much focusing, especially in our region. That's reducing food loss and waste. We are supporting our countries in this concept of reducing food loss and waste. We are considering that food loss and waste is clearly a multiple win opportunity. More food could be available by implementing this concept. Better use of agricultural inputs, including fertilizers and natural resources, could be preserved. And we are definitely discussing, when we talk about food and food loss and waste, 1/3 of the food is being lost and wasted globally. What we are also saying is that we are definitely producing enough food to feed everyone, but unfortunately the figures I mentioned at the beginning are not encouraging at all. So food loss and waste, it's another opportunity which we have to, reducing food loss and waste, it's another opportunity which we definitely have to explore more. And we are focusing on food businesses in production, processing, distribution of food, but also we are targeting population of the countries, individual persons, because we believe that everyone has a role to play in reducing food waste. And we have specific projects. We started one of the best one probably, which we got 2 Guinness records in Turkey. But also we are starting to implement these projects also in Azerbaijan and other countries of the region. I'd like to also mention the aspect of trade for addressing uncertainties in agriculture, as trade can definitely offset local market shortcomings. And as FAO, we continue to provide market information, including prices, government policies, and production prospects to increase the transparency of the information around food supply. We operate global web portals such as FPMA, Food Price Monitoring and Analysis, and AMIS, Ag Market Info System, while we are supporting national governments in strengthening country-level market information systems. We also insist on the fact that improved infrastructure from roads to ports and storage facilities can definitely enhance trade connectivity and efficiency, and private sector's investments are crucial. To conclude, we are only 8 years away from 2030, but the distance to zero hunger is growing, is becoming wider each year. We definitely have to take urgent and broad actions to transform our agri-food systems. This is a term we are using now, which is much broader than just agriculture or food industry. It includes almost everything, including natural resources, including climate change, adaptation to climate change, and many others. And we definitely have to focus to make these agri-food systems more resilient, efficient, and more sustainable. But as a last message, we are calling to the governments all over the world, including the ones you mentioned, having bigger problems in terms of food, to take urgent actions, especially for the most vulnerable people who are in need and hunger. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille. Allora, giustamente
Thank you very much. And of course, you mentioned also the issue of natural reserves and natural resources, such as flora and fauna, that need to be preserved in order to fight climate change. The countries in the world have agreed to create a sort of library of all seeds in the world, of the food richness existing in the world, because every year a number of farming products disappear, a number of produce disappear every year. So talking about this, I would like to leave the floor to Sabuki Sadigov, who is the chairman of the board of the State Reserves Agency in Azerbaijan. So he precisely takes care of natural park preservation. Many of us consider these parks as entertainment or vacation destinations, but they are fundamental areas, key for the Earth's reproduction, especially because they are protected areas. Humanity cannot touch them, they cannot harm them. So you are really focusing on the development of natural areas, also to give an impulse to food security of the country. Is this correct?
Спасибо большое, благодарю. Я продолжу.
Thank you very much. I would speak Russian to diversify languages a little bit. So on behalf of the State Reserves Agency, I'd like to greet all the participants in the forum, and I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers. As my fellow speakers have already said, these challenges are unprecedented. I'm talking about climate change, geopolitical instability, and all of these challenges have led to food security becoming more and more current. One of the goals for any society, any country, in this sense, is to create adequate living conditions for its citizens. And so we're talking about meeting the basic needs, the primary needs. Food is, of course, among them. So food security is a multi-layered problem, and the State Reserves Agency in Azerbaijan plays a key role to ensure food security. And I'd like to say that the state is able to create reservations based on certain rules that are set according to the law, but the creation of these reserves is just the first step.
Спектром регулятивных, скажем так, механизмов.
The agency has also a number of regulatory mechanisms that allow us to avoid increase in prices, and thanks to them we are able to avoid deficits and ensure an adequate quantity of products are input on the market. But of course, food security is a global problem, and it requires global measures. So our agency plays a fundamental role, as I said, but of course in the long run the state and countries in general are working at a number of initiatives to foster agriculture and the whole sector. For example, tax credits, investments in the agro-industrial sector. And as we all know, an individual state cannot have all the necessary goods. So larger international cooperation is fundamental in this sense because it entails an exchange of experiences and an exchange of investments, technology, etc. So streamlining important export operations, the development of logistics, and as you know, due to recent events, this sector has a number of logistic problems. Traditional logistic channels are suffering due to recent events, and all of this is bringing about difficult times for all countries in terms of food security. I would also like to underline the fact that the state needs to work to spread the culture of a balanced consumption. So these times are important in general, and also to do this, the agency plays a fundamental role, as I've said, but I would also like to underline the fact that our agency's role can be seen in terms of setting minimum prices for certain products, strategic products. This could also support our farmers, and I'm sure that through these measures and the initiatives, we will be able to give adequate responses to the challenges and difficulties we have to face. Thank you. As far as I know, Azerbaijan has set up a wide strategy to tackle all of these issues in agriculture, and they have also created special areas where infrastructures are built for the agricultural sector under the Ministry of the Economy. So I imagine it's something that has to do with all the ministries in a government, whereas in the Western world we're used to having each ministry dealing with its own sector, whereas here the Ministry of the Economy is working in agriculture to help develop agriculture and support. So I'd like to involve Elshad Nuriev, who is the chairman of the management board of the Agency for the Development of Economic Zones under the Ministry of the Economy. I'd like to ask you, how do you go about creating these infrastructures for the agricultural sector to foster an agricultural development and a harmonious one, considering the complicated situation we are living?
Çox sağ olun, hörmətli moderator, hörmətli tədbir iştirakçıları. Çox düzgün sual qoyuldu moderatorumuz tərəfindən. Sadəcə bir remarka vermək istərdim ki, İqtisadi Zona İnkişaf Agentliyi İqtisadiyyat Nazirliyi tərkibində fəaliyyət göstərir və bu infrastrukturun təmin olunması və aqroparkların fəaliyyətinin koordinasiya olunması İqtisadiyyat Nazirliyi tərəfindən həyata keçirilir və burada sözsüz ki, biz Azərbaycan Respublikasının Kənd Təsərrüfatı Nazirliyi, Ekologiya və Təbii Sərvətlər Nazirliyi, eyni zamanda Meliorasiya Su Birliyi ilə sıx əməkdaşlıq.
Well, of course, we collaborate with the Minister for Agriculture in creating these areas. During the Soviet period, as you know, every republic had its own independence. For example, in Uzbekistan, cotton is farmed. Azerbaijan produced fruit and vegetables. Russia produced wheat. Through this organization, the feature of each country could be considered. After independence, Azerbaijan had to deal with the food security and the food supplies. In Azerbaijan, we had 240,000 hectares that were not used. We needed infrastructures in those areas because they were lacking. To do that, we needed funds and agricultural companies to be involved. And in our agency, we have created agricultural parks, and we work to make them efficient and to create clusters of these agricultural parks. Of course, we had to take into consideration the nature of the soil and all the climate characteristics, but it would be difficult to create single programs for each agricultural park. So it is important to create a program for clusters. Of course, we need also to create the necessary infrastructures. We are lacking energy infrastructure. We are lacking highways. The water is a global problem now. We are trying to attract private investments to deal with all these issues, and we are also working because, as you know, agricultural produce cannot be sold only locally. We are working only with a view to local markets. We're not considering exporting our produce yet. We have built 44 agricultural parks. The goal is to build, to reach the number of 51. Of course, we are collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture. 70% of sugarcane in Azerbaijan is produced in these agricultural parks, and also corn. 31% of corn is produced in these areas. We're also trying to produce more wheat in those agricultural parks because they have these areas have great potential. So we could increase the production of wheat by 20%. Of course, we could export towards Russia and Italy. Those are the two main partners for exports for Azerbaijan. We mainly focusing on these two countries, and we produce also hazelnuts. We rank 4th in the world in the production of hazelnuts, and for this particular product, our main partner is Italy. We are also focusing on diversifying our exporting markets. When talking about food security, we think not only of ourselves, but also our partners, the European Union, Russia, and bordering countries, because Azerbaijan could play an important role in this context. And we need to pay attention to product labeling and farming certifications. For example, there are several institutions that give certifications in farming, and They have started working also in Azerbaijan, because this is being certified is very important in terms of export. We mentioned the role of fertilizers in agriculture. The Ministry of the Economy also deals with the industrial parks, where coal is also mined. 90% of the products that are exported to Italy are produced with fertilizers and pesticides. The added value chain in this sector is complete, and it's important not just for our country but also for our neighbors.
Allora, si è parlato giustamente di oli.
Of course, we mentioned oils, vegetal fats and oils that are mostly unknown, but they are fundamental for the food chain. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic and then the recent conflict, the price of these fats and oils has drastically increased and is creating difficulties for the agriculture of the whole world. We now have Mario Bernardini, the CEO of Technology SRL, who is an expert of the production of oil, vegetable oil and fats. He builds plants in Russia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. So this is a very specific sector, but a very important one. Could you please explain or give us more information about this sector? And unfortunately, we only have 5 minutes for your intervention. Thank you.
Be as fast as possible. You know, first of all, they are mentioning that there is no water, but there are also systems, if applied in agriculture, where the quantity of water is used less than what used normally when in a standard plant. Also, we are mentioning regarding olive oil. Olive oil, you know, with the competition of Italy, Spain, and North Africa, can be only for local market, but not for export, because you find a very strong company producing a lot of olive oil, and also olives don't need water, but olives takes time to grow and to produce the fruit, and so and so. This is my personal opinion. Now, what I have seen recently, there is a shortage of seed, as we said, there is a shortage of meal because of the history of happens during the last few months. But I think a country like your country, Azerbaijan, also what we are doing now in Uzbekistan, we are installing now a plant extracting oil from cotton seed. They have a cotton seed, from cotton seed they start the oil, plant is already there, plant is under erection, and we hope in a few months the production of oil will start, and they will have already part of the oil and meal also to be used for animal feed. Regarding
Chiedo scusa, mi dicono che bisogna finire.
Unfortunately, I'm being told that we need to close. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. We need to close this panel. I am sure he hasn't been able to say everything he needed to say, but there will be other opportunities perhaps to listen what he has to say. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thanks for your hospitality.